So let me just introduce Kuldeep. Kuldeep is on an advanced program with us, and he's part of a consulting operation company called ZS. And we started talking, and he asked me a few questions about spirituality, specifically about Indian or Hindu spirituality, as it's normally known as a Hindu-Buddhist spirituality. So I thought it would be a good opportunity. We have talked about this before, but he came from slightly different perceptions in terms of the question that he asked. So I'll leave it to him. We have talked a little bit about it. There were some questions which he had sent me, but it's going to be totally an extempore kind of a conversation. It can be completely quite different in terms of what he asked before and what he's going to ask now. And of course, you can always in the audience chip in and ask any questions about what is that when we talk about spirituality in coaching. What does that really mean, and why is it important? Over to you, Kuldeep. All yours.
Thank you so much, Ram. And once again, thank you for agreeing to start this particular conversation. Diving right into it, Ram, and I'll just pick up from where we left last time. Now, you have a kind of a background in spirituality, and you have spent your time. You actually, been in an ashram for a few years, from what I recall. What is spirituality?
Okay. Yeah, it's a good place to start, and then we can come into what is it that, or how is it that we apply spirituality in coaching. I mean, very often, most people sort of synonymously use the word religion and spirituality, which to my mind is not only wrong, and it's extremely dangerous. I think spirituality ended when the original founders of religions, who themselves were fantastic people, and they passed away. And after that, what took over was a bunch of people who really used it for their selfish purposes in whatever way, in whichever religion that you look at today, be it Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, whatever it is, the priesthood and others in whatever name, the churches and the mutts and the whatever that you call it. I think it's Lenin or Stalin or somebody who called religion as opium of the people. I think he was being very flattering. It's far worse. Religion, the way that it is practiced today, I'm sure that's not the way it was intended, is fragmenting people into conflict. And it's about controlling people in fear and greed. And it's ritualistic, which is fanning the flames of all that about, which is your fear and greed. Today, the way that is being practiced in any country you take, including our own at this point in time, it's just breeding intolerance. It is just breeding conflict. It's just breeding, I don't know, maybe skirmishes, eventually leading into full-blown battles and wars, as it has been there. And I think every one of us who has studied any bit of history knows that more number of people in this world have been killed as a result of conflicts arising out of religion than for any other reason. This is absolutely borne out by historical facts and figures. Forget about the Spanish plagues, forget about the COVIDs now and whatever else it is, or wars which seemingly arose out of different things, but essentially had religion as the backdrop. So if you look at religion as something which is controlling, which is limiting, which is fragmenting, when we talk about spirituality, we are really looking at something which is enabling, empowering, opening us up, the freedom. And as a corollary, the way I would like to look at spirituality is the concept of what in the South African Zulu culture is called the Ubuntu. Simply saying that I am because we are. I don't exist alone. I exist as part of a system. Or John Donne, the famous philosopher poet who said, no man is an island. Or much earlier, and I keep repeating it all the time, Isavasya Upanishad, which is probably about 5,000 years old now, where it said, the person who is able to see others within the self and able to see the self in others, and that person is a truly evolved person, is a spiritual person, the Isa, the ultimate energy. So ultimately, if you really move it into the quantum that we are going to talk about, a quantum is a state where you exist as both as a particle and a wave, as is understood, whether it's Einstein or Heisenberg or David Bohm or whoever else. Religion is more about the body, mind, the matter, the egos and desires and all that kind of a stuff. Whereas spirituality is about the energy, which is freeing. Matter always limits. Matter is self-decaying. And very often matter is what corrupts. Energy liberates. So if you were to apply the quantum principle within that, the person who is spiritual is more like the energy or the wave, whereas the person who is religious is more like a localized particle, frigid and rigid and settled in selfish egos and so on and so forth. So this is the broad framework within which I would like to approach spirituality. Each one of you and your cousin would have a different impression. I don't want to sit here and argue about that. Pretty much what I'm saying is what today I would say a large number of reasonably educated people realize. I'm not here denigrating the role of faith in what you might call a religion. But then that faith has to be about what was the purpose of that religion and the scripture. If Jesus talked about compassion and love, how many of those who profess to be Christians are today talking about compassion and love? Or if Hinduism, the Sanatana Dharma as it was called, is about tolerance and openness, what is happening today, has it got anything to do with tolerance and openness in today's culture? So it's really a misrepresentation of what a religion once stood for and not adapting it to times and interpreting certain wordings and verses and sentences to sort of mean whatever that you want to mean, not for helping other people by destroying other people. That cannot be religion. And that's certainly not spirituality. So this is the basic difference that I would like to put up first.
Ram, I would like to pick up a particular thing that you said in Sanatan Dharma or Hinduism per se. And it's a two-part question, so I'll ask the first part now and I'll use the second part later. Spirituality and ritualism, in a way, stand side by side. What place do rituals have in today's spirituality?
I don't think spirituality need to have any rituals, Kuldeep. I think it's a completely wrong understanding. Religions prescribe rituals, or certain tenets within religions prescribe rituals, and they were probably done for good reasons at a point in time. I don't disagree with that. But if times change, today, I think those rituals need to change. And so that is why in the Hindu concept, there are two sets of what I would call scriptural truths. One is called the Shruti, which is essentially, it means that which is heard. And in fact, that concept is even true in Islam, for instance, because it's something the Prophet heard or it came to him in some way. And that was a noble truth, transcending truth. And similarly in Hinduism, the Vedas, the Upanishads, and only these two, believe you me. Not all kinds of nonsense today people are talking about as Shrutis. These are the only two which were recognized as the Shrutis, which were sensed, seen, realized, whatever. And these people who did that, they were called the rishis or the seers, and so on and so forth. Within them, there were certain modalities which they said would lead you to greater knowledge. Because this was originally a pantheistic religion which worshipped elements of nature, which to me is a far, far superior way of faith and devotion and this thing. At least you are really worshipping the natural elements in very many ways. You feared them or you desired them or do whatever, rather than some fantasies that were created in our minds, which later became through our Puranas and Itihasas and so on and so forth to be the gods and the goddesses. And similarly in other religions as well. So all that we talk about as in the Hindu religion specifically, the gods and the goddesses and so on and so forth, these are created by man. They were not ever real. If you go back to the Vedas, there's a beautiful set of Rigvedic verses, Nasudiya, I think they are called, the verses of creation, where the question those people asked was, hey, you, who's supposed to be the creator, who the hell are you? Do you even know what you have done? Do you know that you haven't done anything? Whatever there was, it always existed and will always exist. So what's your role? And this in any other religion would have been called heresy. But that is how the Vedic religion, and just as an aside, it's a digression, it was never called the Hindu religion. The word Hindu religion is an imported word from the invaders who could not pronounce the word Sindhu.
More of an Iranian.
Yeah, it was from Persia. And the word that originally that religion was the Sindhu, which meant the waters, which came from the Himalayas and then went into the sea. And it was the river Sindh, or what it's called today, or Indus as we have corrupted it. So the Sindh became Indus and Sindhu became Hindus and so on and so forth. So we are proud to call ourselves by a name that the invaders gave us, the colonizers gave us. And so we are extremely proud that we are a Hindu religion. The Vedic religion had nothing to do with the word Hinduism. It arose with a set of philosophies which did not talk about any religions. And even the Vedas themselves were actually expanded by the Upanishads. There used to be about 100 and whatever number, and now probably there are about 12 to 15 which are still available. And they don't make a mention of God anywhere, not in one Upanishad. I will challenge any of you who disagrees with me to show that to me. It's all about energy. There's only one Upanishad, the Kathopanishad, where the deity Yama is referred to, but in a context which has nothing to do about a god or goddess, the man who knows the truth, to whom a young lad, Nachiketa, he goes there and asks him, what's the meaning of life and death? And he answers him. So, I'm expanding on this, probably digressing a bit, but rituals have really no place in the original scheme of the Vedic religion, the Vedic philosophy, the Sanatana Dharma, the Upanishads. These were all created in later day kind of Puranas and Itihasas and various other kinds of things, where they were made binding because they wanted to control people. So you do a prayer, you convert it into a puja, you convert it into a yajna, you have these pandas sitting there asking for donations, and they invoke fear in you, and they invoke greed in you. And you are suckers. You fall for them. If you really go back to that religion, you would sit in meditation and you would look within to be able to see the without and not go to necessarily a temple or a priest for anything to happen. I mean, Probably I'm being harsh. Having said that, I do still go to temples because there are some which are phenomenally powerful in terms of the energy of the confluence that happens. But you need to understand it in a proper perspective, not misled by it. Yeah.
I wanted to ask something from the Prashna Upanishad around energy and matter, but I'll park it for the time being. Uh, Ram, when you were talking of concepts, when you introduced Ubuntu, there are similar concepts that are, the lingo today, be it mindfulness, be it things from Taoism, or something picked up from Rosicrucian literature, or as we had discussed earlier in anthroposophy. Uh, what place do they have in, you know, I wouldn't, yeah, if you look at from a coaching perspective, or, you know, looking at spirituality and coaching, not going too deep right now, but at the top. So what are these concepts? Are these the lingo for the time being, or is it something deeper?
Okay. Let me try and combine it with coaching as well, because that's what
Please,
really we are talking about,
please.
right? So in coaching, to me, more and more, what we are trying to, from Coacharya, trying to, in a sense, evangelize is the systemic coaching, which is really where the spirituality meets coaching, because we are not only thinking about ourselves, but we are thinking about not only just the self, but the stakeholders and the system. And this concept was existing in most of our religions, most of our philosophies, way before people like Kurt Lewin and others converted that into an organizational context or OD, organizational development, where they talked about the self, stakeholders, and the system, and so on. So today, what we call systemic coaching is really going beyond yourself, putting yourself in relation to people who are around you, who may in some ways be directly connected or may not be connected, who might influence you, basically who you impact and who impact you. And from there, move to the larger system, be it an institutional law, be it even an ecosystemic like a climate and so on and so forth. So I think once we understand that approach and the concept, your basic contracting, the agreement and coaching itself needs to be systemic. It's not just about me. Like, for example, if someone wants to sort of understand more about what they would like to do in future, and that I want to get my promotion or I want to go in my career, I don't limit myself to asking the person, okay, this is what you want, why, etc., which is typically the new 2019 core competencies 3.1 to 3.4, the older one 2.5 to 2.1 to 2.5. But I would ask whether ICF mandates it or not, in what way that growth is going to be impacting people around you who you care for, and in what way their viewpoints and actions are going to impact you in your movement in your career. Like that, pretty much everything that you can talk about. You can always start with a systemic approach to contracting, to the agreement. And that is what I think is the most important place to start with. And then if you go down in terms of even when you build what's called the relationships through trust and presence and so on, even if you are only looking at the individual, you need to figure out how they are relating to other people. What sense of trust and safety do they have with their family, with their team, and the partnering that they do in presence with those people. And in communication as well, even that you want it or not, the client, when you inquire about, hey, what's going on in your mind? What is it that you're feeling? They're always going to answer you in relation to an experience that they have had with somebody else, one or more people. So it becomes systemic. It's just that you need to expand on that to understand more the perspective, not in a transactional sense, but in the sense of how these interactions affect them and affect their belief systems, affect their values, assumptions, and so on and so forth. And based on that, you create an awareness which is not just about their awareness and the sensory awareness. And this I would like to expand a little bit in a moment. And then move into an action which is about not only them, but also people around. So if you start looking at individual coaching itself in that sense and applying a systemic approach to coaching, then it's much easier when you want to really move from there into teamwork with multiple people. Because we know that how much you work with an individual, whether it's for behavior shifts or skill change, etc., that's going to be limited by the environment in which they work or they live. And I've seen multiple cases before I completely now became an evangelist for system, where how much I transform individuals in terms of what is called the individual one-on-one coaching, I found that they either regressed or resigned or whatever, 50% of them, because the system, the stakeholders did not support that. And it's not merely someone saying, oh, okay, the stakeholder-centered coaching where people support you and they give you feedback. No, it's very, very superficial. It's much deeper than that. Are you really taking care of what those stakeholders want? Only then they would support you. And what are the other things that they are bringing in which is going to make a shift? So in a systemic kind of work, you automatically become spiritual because you realize that I am because we are, that I am not an island. I start looking myself in the viewpoint of other people, see them as they see me, and I see them as they wish to be seen in empathy, unconditional positive regard, and so on. So it's a beautiful confluence of all these, which makes the total of what I would call the systemic work. And to go a little deeper, you use the word mindful and mindless, and this is something which I can go on and on forever, and I have talked about it multiple times. In very, very simple words, in the Vedic system, in the Mandukya Upanishad, there's a definition of 4 states of awareness. Freud and Jung talked about 3, which is the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious. And these 3 are referred to there as well, the first level, the second level, and the third level. And there's a 4th level beyond that. The first level of awareness, where you're really aware of what you are sensing. Am I seeing what I'm seeing? I'm listening to what I'm hearing. I'm tasting what I'm eating, or I'm smelling, etc., or touching, feeling. That's mindful awareness, which is very, very important. So I don't denigrate mindful awareness. It's an absolutely essential point to start with, because otherwise we are even ignorant of all that. Because we might be eating without even feeling a taste, without smelling, without knowing what we are eating. We just dump it down most of the time. Like someone sitting in front of an idiot box and then popping corn or whatever rubbish that is nearby into your mouth. And that is totally idiotic. That is, you are not even mindful. You are unaware of what's going on. And that awareness begins with mindful awareness, and then it goes through additional stages. I don't have time to go into all that now. The subconscious dream state, the deep sleep, unconscious state, which also has its own awareness. But finally, a state where you become, and I'm using deliberately that word, which seems to signify that you are worse than mindful, which is mindless, which is a Zen word, which means no mind. And in the Mandukya Upanishad, it's called the Turiya, the 4th state, or the state in which you are completely detached and witnessing and observing. You are not biased by anything that you sense, because memory is a bad thing, mostly. Most of the time, if you really analyze, which is why Freud and Jung showed very, very clearly, and every psychologist since then has shown, 80% of your operational memory is really about those unconscious, and most of them are negative. And because that's the experience that we tend to remember, not the joyful ones. And those are the ones which are just shoved inside and sort of wrapped up. And that's what your unconscious memories are about, which is why the word memory became a bit of a bad word in both Hinduism and later in Buddhism. and someone who wrongly translated the words sati, which is taken from the memory, and called it mindfulness, not even realizing that's not what Buddha talked about. Buddha talked about a state called sunya. And that sunya didn't mean a state that didn't exist, because sunya means zero, non-existing. But he really called that state where you are no longer sensing mind and matter, mind and body matter, and you are transcending into that energy state, which in the Upanishads and what Shankara calls Sapurna, they both mean the same. And that's what you are seeing in the Coacharya logo out there, which is just opportune. I didn't put it there by intent. The zero is really the no mind, mindless, zero state of mind and body. There's no matter. Even though there is matter, you are transcending that, and you go into that infinite state of spirituality. So if you really want to look at it in today's context, what we are discussing, the religion is that zero, where all that ritualistic, intolerant, on all those kind of things should become zero, completely eliminated. And what should be infinite and free-flowing and dominating should be that spirituality aspect, the energy. Yeah, so let me stop there. Yeah.
Ram, I think there are a couple of questions from the audience. Could I bring that before I get into our next question?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So one is around, again, the difference between religion and spirituality. If you can explain it by a example for somebody who's not too well versed into any script, any scriptures, any Vedas or any other Guru Granth Sahib or any other books for that matter.
Yeah, look, the simplest sense, let me put it this way. And I'm talking about the way it is practiced today. Let's not go into the semantics of what it is, okay? Forget about the scriptures. In fact, in that famous verse that Mahatma Gandhi always used to sort of say in his prayers, Ishwara Allah, Nam, whatever. And he talks about the elimination of religion. And if you go to John Lennon, he talks about in his Imagine a land where there is no religion. And anybody, even in the modern day, today, if that person is educated, really civilized, and really concerned about what's happening around them, and not be an epitome of like Trump, they would know that religion is limiting the way religion is being interpreted. It's about rituals. It's about some rigidity. Some people saying, oh, God made the world, whoever that God is, a bearded old man who was playing a harp with a halo around his head. In 6 days, in the 7th day, he lay down to rest and see the whole world go to rot. Is that the world that we really believe in? Is that the religion that we believe in? Whereas spirituality, all that is about, I don't know, about human desires, because these were all created by people through their mind, and it reflects the fears and the greed that they have. That's what religion became. Spirituality is just the opposite. You moving beyond all that into, I would say, being humane and being human. And in Hindi, we have this word, Urdu, insaniyat. And you have similar words in every language. And where you truly believe that this human being is divine. And that is what Jesus said. And that is what the Vedas and Upanishads say. And I'm sure that is where, in the Quran, somewhere deep in the verses, that is the essence of what's being said. Spirituality is about divining the divinity within you, the energy within you, which then believes that we need to treat everybody else as equal, respectfully. So in a very, very simple sense, that is what it is. But then religion brings in the fragmentation, whether between one religion and another for manufactured causes. One believes cow sacred, another believes that pig is, sinful. And then within that, you break down into the caste system, you break down into every goddamn thing that is imaginable, and you create conflict. So in very simple words, if somebody wants again to understand, simply put, religion is about fragmentation of your faith. Spirituality is about the integration of your faith, if that will make any difference to anyone.
Beautifully put, Ram. Beautifully put. Thank you for that. Uh, Ram, coming back to my previous question, for lack of a better word, I'll use modalities.
Yeah.
Or we see a lot of the Kundalini or energy formations in somatic coaching. Similarly, a lot of what is spoken in mindfulness about being mindful is seen in something like Vipassana. So how can these modalities be brought into coaching? And now I'm purely speaking about Eastern modalities.
No, whether it's East or West, let's not worry about it.
Okay.
Because if you really go into shamanism, which is Native Americans in North America, Canada, or US, and other places practice, and many of the tribals still practice because they are pantheists. They call them animals, but it doesn't mean they worship animals. It's even, they don't even understand, people who call them pagans animals, they don't even understand what they're talking about. They worship nature. They believe that there is life in every animal, every plant. If you can't kill a cow, then you can't kill a goat, you can't kill a chicken. Everything has life in it. So where the hell do you differentiate? Why do you differentiate? So, but coming back into this thing about modalities, whether somebody asked about this somatic and ontological and all that, it depends on the way that you use it. Again, if you make it limiting, the somatic is just about the body, what the experiences of the body are about. Or the ontology is about whatever vaguely you think is about the being, which is a combination of maybe cognitive, emotional, and whatever else is happening. And you're going deep within to figure out what it is. My thing is, yes, sure, all those help, okay? Because very often the thoughts that we have, they do not necessarily reveal the truth to ourselves. Sometimes we may not be wanting to lie, but the way that the unconscious mind is deep within, we don't know what the heck is going on there. And so we say something, we feel this is what the other person wants to hear. And so we say what it is. So pretty much, I would say 50% of what we say is usually not necessarily true, especially in a deeply emotional kind of situation. So you go deeper, probing into that unconscious mind in many ways. One of them is through the emotions, because there's much less chances of emotions lying, less than that of cognition. And therefore, if you ask a person, okay, when you experience that, rather than telling me in words about what exactly you experienced, what is the emotion that you felt? Is it about fear? Is it about anxiety? Is it about stress? Is it about relationship, or whatever it may be? And even that, I wouldn't stop. I would go deeper, and I say, but this is something that you need to know how to do it. And I'm just giving an explanation. Is where do you sense it? Which part of your body? And maybe you have to take them through a simple example about, the time when you are truly, truly afraid and you are scared of spiders, I know, but you saw that spider, and where did you feel that phobia or sort of disgust or fear? And invariably, someone who's experienced that would say, deep in my stomach, deep in my abdomen, that is where fear, disgust, and all come from, what is called swadhisthana in the chakra. And then when it's a little less, it's an anxiety, it's not that much serious, yeah, and it's stressing me out, you feel it in your navel, which is your Manipuraka. And very often when I ask people, what is really stressing you out? Well, they will tell me this, that, whatever it is, the workload and this and that and all that kind of stuff. So where do you feel it? The person will say, hey, I'm feeling it in my heart region. It's not because of stress. It's because of relationship. Once you are familiar with that pathway, you can very, very quickly, you can identify that. I mean, standard somatics of many people don't teach you that. But this is chakra-based somatics, where you can actually, based on where the chakras are, where your experiential emotions are expressed, you can pinpoint what emotion is coming up and why and where, and how do you move away from it. So when you go that deep into it, be it somatics, be it ontology, then you are going into not the mind and matter, but you are going beyond that into the energy state, which are about what the chakras are. So there's a shift that happens. But that's again, it's not the ICF competencies. It's not something. I wouldn't even want to teach everybody that, because it needs to be done with a certain amount of respect. It needs to be done with a certain amount of total understanding. You need to have tremendous respect for the other person, not fool around with the person, like many of the people fool around with hypnosis, using it like some kind of a stage trick, which it is not. It is extremely dangerous if it's improperly used. So similarly, somatics and ontology and things like that, they are capable of really helping you to understand the other person well, but you have the other person's permission for doing that. Do you have that unconditional positive regard that Rogers talked about, and so on and so forth? So yeah, somebody asked some questions about these. Yeah, and someone asked about Sampurna and Shunya. Sampurna, Purna, and Shunya. In my lexicon, they are identical, though refer to the opposite sides of the coin, as it were. The Purna refers to the fullness of the energy. That is the first verse of the Upanishad, Purnamada Purnamidam, Purnat Purnamudasyate, that kind of a stuff. That is where it comes up. And the Shunya, which is a word that Buddha used beautifully to describe that state where I'm beyond all that. I'm detached. I'm no longer worried about the body and the mind. There was a great saint, Ramana, and also many of you who know about Ramakrishna. They both suffered towards the end of their life with cancer. And when the physicians sort of said, okay, you should go on morphine and this, that, whatever, you're having pain, they sort of said, pain? This body itself is not mine. How can the pain be mine? And that was a level of evolution that they came from. We may not be able to do that extent, but believe you me, if you really have serious pain, one of the ways how to heal that pain is to go deep into an awareness of that pain. Just keep visualizing and going into that pain. Look at that pain as a visible entity. There are multiple ways of doing it, as a color, as a shape, whatever it is. And then keep looking at it. You will find over a period of time, it may take initially long, but once you are familiar with it, even about 10 minutes, you would start, the pain may not go away, but your anxiety about the pain, the way that it obsesses you, will go away. The pain is going to be there. It's a physiological function. It's not going to go away. But psychologically, it will stop affecting you. So that is when you move from the mind and the body into the energy, the spirituality part of it. And all of these have a place in coaching, because ultimately, in coaching, what we are trying to do is to empower the other person who comes disempowered. And therefore, you are in service of the other person. And you need to see within that person a part of you, and you see the other person as a part of you, which is where Otto Scharmer so beautifully talks about generative listening. I call it generative visioning, generative perception. Are you able to look at that person as the person wishes to be? And then do everything that you can to shift that person into that state. And that is not possible, believe you me, in a pure mental, emotional, and cognitive space. You need to be communing with that person. Many of us have even forgotten the meaning of the word communion as different from communication. We worship communication. We should be worshiping communion, which is beyond words, beyond verbs. And it's a totality of how you can interact with one another.
Ram, you beautifully brought in certain concepts of how to bring certain, again, I'm using the word modalities for lack of a better word, into coaching. How would spiritual coaching look if we were to? I know there are already some schools teaching this. I know in India, Symbiosis teaches something known as spiritual coaching. Uh, what would spiritual coaching look like based on all that we've discussed in the last 45 minutes?
Look, I don't know what symbiosis or anybody teaches.
Exactly.
Okay, I have no idea. And a lot of people who talk about spirituality, and I, like you earlier talked about that, I went through this experience of 7 years. I lived partly in ashrams and I wanted to become a sannyasi. Then I realized the guy who was leading me, who I thought was God incarnate, as it were, turned out to be a complete hypocrite and a fake. And it was one of the worst kind of moments of my life. And I had to get over it. And eventually I moved into coaching. Now, to me, it's very simple. When you respect the other person and you treat the other person with all these things that we earlier talked about, that when you make an agreement with that person as a coaching agreement, the CC3s or whatever that you use for that purpose, they are not just about that person, about delving into the mind of that person, about the self, but the self is with a capital S. It's the spiritual self. It's about what is it that when you want this, whatever that is that you want. I want to lose weight. I want to get a promotion. I want to have this relationship. What happens when you start moving out of that space into a larger space of other people who are part of your life and your work? What is it that this outcome that you want, how is it going to affect them? How is it going to make their life different? And the same way, how do you, that impact of their behavior, how does that happen? And therefore, you start then looking for a meaning from a larger perspective, not just that individual perspective. And similarly, what are the challenges, a larger perspective, and so on. So if you continue that, in terms of everything being in the systemic space, then to my mind, willy-nilly, you are entering into the spiritual space, according to my definition. Okay. If somebody else defines spiritual in a different sense, can you coach the spirit? I don't know. I'm not one of those fake gurus, okay? So I can't. I can coach you as you are in your relationship with a larger system and bring in that element of what you might call equal to the Ubuntu, that you are larger than yourself, or the Isavasya Upanishad, and all that kind of a stuff. So bringing spirituality into coaching should be normal. It should not be something special. It's not a niche. So more and more, like for example, in my cohorts in Coacharya, I start with this question: what does the universe wish you to be at the end of this journey of about a year? Because the ACTP journey takes about 125 hours. So the first question is, what do you mean? What does the universe wish me to be? I can tell you what I want to be. No, I say, I don't want you to tell me what you want to be. I want you to think about it. And we start discussing that. That enters into this space that when the universe wishes you to be something, it's more than you. It's about people around you in the universe, people you interact with, people who interact with you. And therefore, what is the totality of that which is happening? And that makes it spiritual and that makes it systemic. So that is what I would say. There's someone who's asked a very, very, very long question. How can I present into the business world as a business executive coach the conscious awareness, a higher dimension business degree? I don't know. I mean, look, I mean, I get this question all the time. Arjuna's Suli. First, you have to be convinced yourself. I mean, the question that you are asking is you're not convinced. So how are you going to convince anybody else? If you want to be really practicing something to do with meditation or spirituality or something, you should have that experience. It's experiential. It's not cognitive. I cannot teach you. You can only learn from me. So if somebody asks me, how can it be marketed? I'm not interested in marketing it. The moment you talk about marketing it, forget it. You're no longer spiritual. Magda is not here, but she can tell you, we don't have OKRs and KPIs and all that nonsense. We just have a vision. Our vision is that we should try and get everybody to be their better self. We want to create a community. We want to do what we can with respect, with client centricity, unconditional positive regard, and empathy. And Carl Rogers had a huge problem in doing it. Marketing is communication to the mainstream. First, communicate to yourself and figure out how you experience it and tell the truth. That's all I'm telling you now. Every single word that I'm uttering to you is based on my experience.
So could I change that? Could I
Yeah.
word that question a little differently? I think maybe that would help a lot of us. So the minute we talk of spirituality, the first impression is that there is so much to be done. There's so much to be learned. And, for a lot of people, that puts them off. Now, similarly, when we talk of spiritual coaching or bringing spirituality into coaching, it could again, this is my perception, of course, I'm speaking from there, that, the amount of work that needs to be done, we are not sure that, okay, maybe, we'll have to read so much and whatever. So for somebody to bring in spirituality into coaching, right? What is it that they need to focus on primarily first?
Okay, very simple. Okay, in classes that I run, which are across religions, across countries, across faiths, and many of them are senior executives, the kind of people that Suli is talking about. I start with 15 minutes of meditation. Initially, I tell them it's centering, it's non-denominational. Of course, it's not denominational. We start with simple sitting with your spine erect, with your feet firmly on the ground, and tense yourself, relax yourself so you're fully relaxed with your neck tucked in. There's a particular posture where the energy flow is uniform. Even if you're sitting in a chair, you don't have to sit like a pretzel in a cross-leg position. And then just watch your breath. Take a deep breath, as deep as you can from below your navel. Hold it as long as you're comfortable initially, and exhale very, very, very slowly, twice, thrice as long as you inhale, and then hold it. Continue that cycle. And there's a beautiful book by a guy called Nestor on breath. Just read that book. And he says that 5 cycles per minute. That means each of those cycles should be at least about 12. I can do usually 2 cycles a minute with practice. You take 30 seconds for doing that, but start with about 10 or 12, which any of you can do. And keep doing that. And gradually, as you're comfortable with that posture, gradually you are comfortable with that breath exercise, detach yourself and start looking at yourself from the top of your head to the tip of your toes. There's a meditation tape which is available on Coacharya, free of charge. Please go and access it, or just write to support at Coacharya. Where can I find that? So once you start doing it, you become aware of your body. So you become aware of your breath, you become aware of your body. And as you continue to do that, something strange happens. That the awareness of the body becomes almost automatic. And from that awareness, you move into a space which is different. And then it requires a little bit of guidance in terms of how do you understand that energy. So I usually do it by saying, okay, now you focus on the top of your head. And rather than just focusing on the top of the head, try and see if there is experience that something coming, that is you're experiencing. It's like a movement, it's like a blood flowing underneath or whatever it may be. And similarly at different parts of your body. So if you do that for about 20 minutes, you enter into a completely different experience where you're actually experiencing something. I'm not bullshitting you. You know if I am, because that is what you would experience. And take it longer, as long as you can. And the Yoga Nidra process in the yoga and the Vipassana that you talked about earlier, they are based on that. Because Vipassana, everybody thinks is mindfulness. It starts with mindfulness. But by about the 6th day, you enter into a state which is pure mindlessness. And anyone who's done Vipassana seriously would know that. So these are experiential things. I mean, there's no point in I can talk till the cows come home. It won't help you. And I don't want to persuade anybody. Like Jennifer, somebody put it there, marketing is religion. I don't want to market. I don't want to be one of those evangelists who comes there in the pulpit and then talks whatever nonsense about killing other people. You just have to experience it yourself. Instead of all these priests and padris preaching, if they were to just get their congregation sitting in silence and meditating, they would be doing them a huge favor. That's all that needs to be done. And it's not a ritual. If you think it's a ritual, it's a ritual. So don't do it. Unless you start experiencing it, you will have those questions. And when you start doing it regularly, you will find that your thoughts subside. The thoughts eventually will cease. Or even if you have thoughts, you can learn how to look at the thoughts and let them go and not pursue them from end to end. There are multiple ways of how you can learn. So these are things which, if you practice yoga, you can learn. And many of our trainers do teach that as part of the training program as well. So you can do that. And I'm very happy if you would like to. We did some courses before I called my yoga teacher and I did some meditation work. We can do that again. That's not a big thing to do. But you have to have faith in it. If you don't have faith in it, you're not going to be able to experience it. I'm not even faith in that sense. That suspend your other beliefs. That's all that I ask of you.
Experience the process.
Yeah, experiencing it. Try it out. I'm not saying that this is what is bound to happen. No, I don't know. Because no meditation has the same result twice. It's like the river. You put your finger on it, you'll never feel the river the same. The same thing with meditation. Each time it's different. Okay. So anyway, I'll stop here. I think it can go on for a long time.
Ram, I'll ask, I know we have very little time. I'll ask part 2 of my earlier question.
Right.
If we are looking at, and now I'm coming from an understanding that in religion and spirituality,
yeah,
if you take them hand in hand, so religion is the set of rituals that help you go further into focusing or understanding spirituality better. With that said, when you're getting spirituality into coaching, what are some of the practices that individual can bring into his practice, like kind of action steps? I know you spoke a lot about experience right now, but then
no, before that, I did mention to you the practice. It is just follow the systemic practice. That's all that you need to do. Just stop looking at the client as a piece of sculpture carved out of a stone. The person is not. And when you start exploring the mind of the client, you're not boxing that mind in that space in front of you. The mind is free flowing. It thinks about everything else. The feeling is free flowing. Learn to accept that. Learn to explore that. And that's what we have a very, very simple formula. LASI, listen and observe, acknowledge and appreciate, sense and share, inquire and explore. And when you inquire and explore, do it with sensations, emotions, and thoughts. If you just remember these two words, LASI and ACT, and use it systemically. With the person, if I'm working with you, my questions will all be, in addition to what is it that you want, even if I have to look at who are you, if you were to look at yourself and say, who am I? You are not an island. Your definition of who am I is related to the environment that you are in. You may be different as a husband. You may be different as a father. You may be different as a son. You may be different as a friend, a lover, whatever, multiple things, as a boss, as a subordinate. Now you need to integrate all that together. So that is where the systemic view comes in. And then you can expand it into a team. So any coaching that if you do, if you start making it systemic, I think you will reach that part of it, what I'm talking about as spiritual, in that sense. I don't want to go too deep into the philosophical aspect of it. Very simply put, I mean, religion is about a set of rigid beliefs which don't change. We inherit them, and that's what we believe in, and those become our limiting beliefs. Whereas once we understand, the coaching is all about releasing us from that limiting belief. And that is where the spirituality comes in. So coaching should lead from religion to spirituality. If you look at it that way, it'll help.
Thank you so much for that, Ram.
Yeah.
I know we are actually exactly on time or a minute above it.
Yeah, someone who was asked about, let me finish off with that.
Please.
Yeah, if you're in a difficult situation, how to distance yourself from it, detach yourself, it's difficult, Nidhi. I completely understand what you're saying. It's something that you need to be familiar with to be able to do it. It's like a sinusoidal curve with huge amplitudes and peaks. Over a period of time, you have to use meditation to gradually bring down those peaks, the amplitudes, so it becomes flatter and flatter. And it will happen, it can happen, and it does happen. But you just have to keep working at it. And if you start it when you are in a bad shape, it's going to be more difficult. But if you are able to do it when you are a normally good state, balanced state, and gradually practice it this way, and it is certainly possible. I don't know how else to tell you this. This is my experience, and I have worked with people to make that happen. I'm sure it'll happen for you. There's no question about it. Okay. Thanks.